Good morning and welcome again to Summit, where we discuss issues that are very fundamental to nation building. I am Jumoke Michaels. In recent decades, building collapse has become one of the most tragic and persistent urban safety problems in Nigeria. And nowhere is it more pronounced than in Lagos State. These disasters have contributed in no small measure to thousands of deaths nationwide, and Lagos consistently leads in both frequency and human impact. In year 2024 alone, Lagos toppled the list with about 13 collapses, and that is across the state, while previous years have seen similar patterns of fatalities and property losses that underscore an urgent need for action and improved enforcement. Today, we are speaking with a civil engineer to unpack the causes of these collapses, explore accountability, and discuss how to prevent future occurrences. We have the Lagos State Chairman of the Nigerian Institution of Civil Engineers on Summit this morning, Engineer Sobowale Bolaji. You're welcome.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good to have you on Summit
It's a pleasure.
for the first time.
It's a pleasure. Good morning.
You're welcome.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so your organization did work last weekend against building collapses in Lagos. What prompted you to come out for that work?
Yeah, thank you so much. The major reason for the work against building and infrastructural collapse is for the institutions to carry out an advocacy so that the government, the house owner, and developers, and the general public at large can also know that they need to patronize the professionals on all aspects or stages of their projects. That is the major reason why we need to carry out that advocacy work, just to enlighten the public that it needs to bid right. Our lives and property matters to us as civil engineer in Lagos State.
I like that word, build right.
Yes.
So, as a civil engineer, how serious is the issue of building collapse in Lagos? Are we dealing with isolated cases or systemic problem?
Yeah, I would say it's an isolated cases because it's not a genetic cases, because building collapse occurs in Lagos State as a matter of some 4 major reasons. I will call it in 4 cardinal points that give us to building collapse. 1, Lagos State is a center of excellence, is a commercial hub of the country. We have a lot of people moving in every day, and we have a lot of housing constructions going up. So one of the major causes of building collapse in Lagos State is poor design, followed by substantial usage of materials, poor supervisions, and poor maintenance culture. So these are the 4 cardinal points that really give birth to building an infrastructural collapse in Lagos. Why other points can also, key into this, but these are the major 4 key points that give birth to building an infrastructural collapse.
All right, so from my research, I discovered that Lagos has more of these issues of building collapse when we look at nationwide. Why is this so, really? Why is it occurring more frequently in Lagos?
Yeah, you are absolutely right. By statistics, Lagos has the highest number of building collapse in the country. Yes, you all agree with me that Lagos is a water-run area. We are surrounded by water. So when it comes to construction, as a civil engineers, there are some process and procedures that needs to be carried out. And you also agree with me that some major building collapse that has occurred in Lagos State majorly happens at Lagos Island and Ebute Metta. These are water-run areas.
From your observation, right? Or
yes,
your
of course,
research?
From the research and statistics.
Okay.
So it occurs majorly at the Lagos Island and Ebute Metta. So maybe very few occasions that happens at the mainland. Okay. So majority of those incidents happens at the highland. So because it's an island, and when it comes to construction process, when you are building on a mainland, on an island, it has different process and procedures. And like what I've said earlier, design process, if it's faulty, you are going to experience building collapse. when we are using substantial materials for the project, it's going to affect the nature of the project. Supervision process and techniques is a very crucial aspect of the building process. Then the maintenance culture, like I've said earlier, is also a very key role. So if civil engineers, developers, house owners, and the public can always engage professionals and experienced civil engineers or any other build professionals on their project, we can stop the menace of building and infrastructure collapse in Lagos State.
All right, so you have already mentioned 3 points why we experience building and infrastructural collapse in Lagos. But let me ask you, how much of the problem is actually due to poor design versus poor construction practices?
Yeah, majorly by experience and the information at hand, or by statistics. Majority of the incidents of building collapse does not boil down to poor designs. It really occurs as a result of usage of substantial materials and poor supervisions. And let's take it back to the roots. If a design is poor, automatically the building process will also be poor. So if the design is okay and the construction process is faulty, then we can experience building collapse. So majority of times that happens in Lagos, we have good design, but substantial usage of construction materials and poor supervisions majorly leads to building collapse in Lagos State.
All right, so you've continued to talk about substandard materials. And even when we hear reports of these buildings that collapse, you know, we hear a lot of people mentioning substandard materials. Can you explain how the use of substandard materials actually contributes to these collapses?
Yes, on this note, I must give kudos to the administrative of our executive governors of Lagos State, His Excellency Governor Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu. He has been working diligently with with some ministries to really ensure that every stage of construction process is being supervised and, you know, attested to by the ministry before you move to the next stage. Substantial materials. Yes, we have a lot of substantial materials in the countries, but the major reason why it happens that we make use of substantial materials on site is 2 basic things. One, when the clients try to cut corners, then when the
clients themselves,
then that is one. But to me, it's still the minute percentage of the whole thing. The major percentage that will attach that or apportion that to the build professional on that project, maybe a civil engineer, an architect, a builder, or anybody. Because since we are licensed and experienced build professionals, we should not be pushed to the wall and admit to the fact that the client wanted to cut corner or to save more cost on the building materials. We have a lot of building materials in the market, but as professionals, we know the good ones and we know the poor or the bad ones. So as professionals, what we usually advocate for is for professionals to stick their neck and ensure that they patronize those vendors that supply good and quality construction materials. They should not use to the fact that the client is about saving money for the project. Yes, we need to be economical in our dealings when we are going to the previous site or project. But at the same time, life matters and safety is very key and paramount in any building construction or building project. So we must also stick our ground and ensure that the client or the financier of that project patronize and get good and quality materials that meet the engineering standard, process, and codes.
But what about cases where the client actually gets these quality materials, but the developer, I don't know, the builder begins to not to use correct measurements? Is that still part of saying something is substandard?
Yes, it's also like what you've said. In scenarios, we've experienced a lot of cases where the client or the developers get quality materials, but the professional or the supervisor does not know how to apply the materials. That is what I also call quackery in engineering. Because you cannot call yourself a licensed, experienced, or a professional civil engineer and you don't know the engineering process and procedures about the usage of these materials. So if you are not a professional, you don't go into that field. Because once in engineering, we don't assume. We work according to the design, engineering standard, code, and practice. We don't assume in engineering, because once you assume, you're going to cause a disaster. So if you call yourself an experienced civil engineer, you must be able to interpret the drawings and the process of construction according to the engineering code and standard.
How serious is the issue of dealing with quacks in the built industry? How serious is this issue?
It's a very serious issue, especially in Lagos State. I don't want to generalize it in Nigeria as a whole, but in Lagos State, it's a very big issue. But thank God for this current government in Lagos State. They'll be working diligently to put a permanent stop to quackeries in the built environment. And for those who care to listen, I categorize quackery into 2 stages.
Okay.
Unprofessional quacks and professional quacks. Operational quacks are those that they are not experienced. They are not licensed to carry out some certain process in construction sites. Like an engineer, an architect, a builders. These are licensed and professional bodies or personnel on each project. They are licensed by their respective professional institutions to become an engineer or to become an architect or to become a builder. So when you see a bricklayer or a mason coming to site, or an iron bender claiming that he is also an engineer, that is a quack.
That's a quack.
That is a quack. So that is the first stage. The second stage I call professional quackery is when an architect is trying to play the role of a civil engineer. I call it a professional quackery. When a builder is trying to play the role of an architect on a construction project, that's a professional quackery. So every stage of the project has its own rules according to each professional. So you don't dive into other people's professionals, because once all those things are not clearly stated, it can affect the project. And once it affects the project, it will affect lives and properties.
Wow, that's a very good one. So, and then these things are very common. That you say an iron bender will feel that because he has spent 15 years, we know, in building.
That makes him an
engineer. It makes him a professional.
No.
Wow. All right. So now you are a professional engineer. How, let me say, how often are people like you who are professionals actually involved from foundation to completion? Or are there sometimes are you sometimes compromised by pressure from developers?
Let me answer that.
Okay. I hope the question is clear.
It's clear.
All right.
As a licensed, certified, and experienced civil engineer, you need to be involved at the conceptual stage of each project. What I mean by this, when the client or the initiator of that project is trying to, explain his vision about the project to you, you need to be involved at that initial stage. So you need to be involved at the preliminary stage, the planning stage, the design stage, the construction stage, and also the maintenance stage. You need to be involved in all the stages. And I will tell you for free, I've started a lot of projects that I did not finish. Because when I see that maybe the client or the person involved is trying to cut corners, so I need to stand my ground and say, no, I have started well, but if you cannot let us abide by the principle of engineering design of this project, then I'll write a letter to leave your project. I've done that in several occasions. So my advice to professionals, build professionals, is that when you see such thing, you speak out. And not only speaking out, you make it documented because of future reference that I've started this project because of reason A, B, C. I will not be able to continue because our seal, our stamp, our license is very important to us. And the lives of Lagosians and the life of every citizen in Nigeria matters to us. So we do not look about the money, because the professionalism is a very key part that we must ensure that we always keep the flag flying every time. So once there is maybe political pressures, financial pressures and the likes, it's better you write a written document and send to the client. Also copy the supervising Ministry of Urban and Physical Planning. You copy them that you are not longer part of this project, so that in case anything happens in future, it can be exonerated.
All right, so from your experience, the times you have written such letters to the client, both the client and the Lagos State Agency, underseeing building projects in Lagos,
yes.
What does the government do at that point?
Yes, thank you so much.
Because so many times we hear that when a building collapses, you say, but the building plan and everything was
Approved.
approved, you know. So what went wrong?
Yeah, let me answer that. In most cases that I've written that, the state government usually seal such projects.
They usually
See such projects.
Okay.
Because this is what Lagos State government have been doing, which is a very fantastic initiative. Once you submit a drawing for approval, it will undergo series of scrutinies through the council engineers, the district architect, district mechanical engineer, and the likes. Once it meets all the building codes and standard, the state building code and standard, they give you an approval. So once you got that approval, every stage of that project must be certified by the district engineers of the ministry. For example, Lagos State Building Control Agency, once they give you an approval, you must write a letter of state certifications, asking them to come and satisfy that stage before you move to the next stage. They need to come, make the observations. If it is okay, they will satisfy and give you certifications letter of that stage before you move to the next stage. Meaning that you as a professional on that project, you are doing the right thing according to the approval given to you. Then the state government on their own part, they are also monitoring that each stages of that project to ensure that you build according to the approval given. So with that, we are going to curb the menace of building collapse or irregularity in our construction sites. So they've been doing so well in that aspect.
Yes, I want you to give me a particular scenario, that's what I'm asking, of a time you have written such letters to this government that you are pulling out of this project because they are cutting corners or they are not building according to the rule of the approval. What do they do at that point?
Yes, it's just simple.
Yeah.
Like I've said earlier, once let me cite a scenario. Once we start a foundation, after the excavations of the trenches, the district engineers will come and satisfy that. So you do the foundations. Maybe the next phase of the work, there is a compromise in the process between maybe the materials, the engineer, the clients, and the likes. Then I will write to them. When I wrote to them, they have to come to that site, seal up that site, because at every stage that I write to them, it is my seal, it is my license, it is my name that is on the letter. So for me as an experienced and licensed engineer to have withdrawn from such projects and stating the reasons to the state government, the first thing they did, they shut down the site.
Seal the site.
When they shut down the site, they now ask the client that if the client does not want to work with me, the client must produce an experienced, chartered and licensed engineers to continue the job, and such engineers must adhere strictly to the engineering code and standard according to the approval given. So the state government focus more on such sites and they ensure to the latter that the project was carried out according to the engineering standard.
All right, but do you think these enforcement agencies act early enough or only after disaster happens, like we always see?
Yes, I would tell you that they act early enough.
Okay.
But I think they need to also do more. And in the process of doing more, the state governments, through their initiative, they've inaugurated what we call CAP, Certified Accredited Professionals.
Okay.
So these are built environment professionals, the architects, the builders, the quantity surveyors, the civil engineers, and the likes. So they call them CAP. So they are working in hand with the Lagos State Building Control Agency to ensure that they also monitor each project at each district. What I mean by district, each local government. Because as an engineer, like what I do tell my members in Lagos State, if you see something, you say something. Because maybe in your street, in your environment, in your place of work, you see a building or a construction coming up, and you observe that there is a lot of construction errors, you speak up. You write to the nearest building control agency, or you call the CAP agency, the CAP personnel attached to that district, to come and flag up that site and ensure that they do the right thing. If we can always speak up, then our environment, our building sites will become a better place for us.
Because we are saving lives
We are saving
ultimately.
lives. So the state governments have been acting like what I've said earlier. They always ensure that each project has a consulting engineers, and each district has an engineer that monitor each stages of that project. So there has been a different scenario whereby they will give an approval of A, the engineers or the contractor or whoever or the developer will go to the site and build B. So when such thing happens, the state government will flag down such projects and ensure that they do the right thing. You can see a lot of demolition going up in VI, Lekki, and the likes, that the state governments are demolishing those buildings because they don't meet engineering standard. They got an approval for A, they are building Bs. So they've sent a lot of, you can see that whenever maybe you are walking on the street, you see a lot of cross on easy side, stop work, contravention notice has been passed to them that you guys have been contravening. So you did not build according to the approval given. You need to stop and work according to the approval reason. And once that is not done, they'll flag up that site, ensure that they stop that work so that the contractor or the engineer or the developer in questions do the right thing at the right time.
And you know, people hardly understand when you just find that buildings are being demolished.
Yes.
People don't usually understand. They don't like to see from government side or from the side of the professionals. All right, so what should average Lagos residents look out for before renting or buying a house?
Yes, let me take it one after the other. Buying a house. If you want to buy a house in Lagos State, the first thing you must get, one, the genuinity of such house.
The what?
The genuinity of such house.
Okay,
in
genuinity.
Terms of, yes, in terms of the documentation, is the seller the real owner of the house? You can engage a professional lawyer to help you do a background check on documents presented for the selling and the purchasing of such property. Secondly, as an engineer, you need to also engage, before you make payments, you engage a professional civil engineer to help you to assess the structural integrity of such buildings. There are a lot of buildings that you can see online that, you know, they are being put up for sales. But looking at it, the aesthetics part is very beautiful, this and that, but the structural integrity matters. Right from the foundations, there are a lot of tests you can, you know, carry out on building to really ascertain the structural integrity of such building. Maybe it is fit for habitations or not. So I would like to advise that once someone is buying a building, when you've engaged your lawyer to help you do the legal parts of the purchase and, you know, the transaction process, you should also engage a professional and experienced civil engineer to help you ascertain the integrity, the structural integrity of the building before you go ahead to make your transaction or make any payment. Secondly, in terms of house rentage, you also need to engage a professional civil engineers. A lot of houses, they will have painted it, you know, they are very good looking, but structurally, they're not okay. A lot of capillary reactions might have occurred at the beneath parts of the building. A lot of houses might have cracks, foundation issues, errors. So the structural engineers or the civil engineers will tell you that, sir, ma, this house is really beautiful, but it's not good for habitation. So you can easily look for elsewhere.
How often do people really do all this?
Yes, that is the reason why Nigerian Institute of Civil Engineers, Lagos State chapters, we've been trying to carry out an advocacy programs to really enlighten the publics about all these steps and process that I've mentioned earlier. Involve with professionals, engage professionals, and assume and don't assume. Allow them to carry out the professional duties so that you can also sleep and close your two eyes.
And wake up safely. All right, so okay, you have even already answered. That was going to be my next question, that are the public adequately educated about the dangers of living in structurally unsafe buildings? You know, so you have already explained that. Now, let me ask you, are there myths about building safety you often hear that amaze you?
A lot.
Okay.
I'll cite 2 or 3 examples.
All right.
When you get to, okay, for example, I happen to be a consulting engineer on a project. When I got there, I met a young man. After exchanging pleasantry, are you the project engineer? He said yes. Are you an engineer? He said yes. Then I pick up my phone. What is your name? He told me his name. I pick up my phone and go to the licensing website to really ensure maybe he's a licensed engineer. I couldn't find his name on the database. I asked again, young man, please come. You said you are so. He said yes. But you are not an engineer. He said, I said I'm an engineer. I said, but don't repeat that. You are not an engineer. I've put your name, the name given to me that you just said that you are, is not on the database of the licensing website. That was when he now told me, he's not an engineer, he's a QS, he's a quantity surveyor.
Okay.
I said, then you should tell me you are a quantity surveyor. You are not an engineer. So on that same project, it's okay. If you're a quantity surveyor, then I need to speak with the project engineer. He said project engineer is not available. Then why this column is there? We are thinking that if we can remove the column, it will create more space for the living room. I said no. The engineer that designed this building, that put these columns, has a reason. Because the engineer will have analyzed the structural members and know that, okay, there's a need for us to introduce the columns here. Do you inform the engineer before you replace this column? Said no, he thinks that if you can just shift it about 2 meters apart to create more room for the living room. I said no. Then I now write a comment and send to the client so that the structural engineers can also be involved. So we hear a lot of things that sometimes is amazing. You will say a mason, which call a bricklayer, will tell you that engineer, the drawing is just a suggestion. We can use our initiative on site. No, as an engineer, as a professional and licensed engineer, should not allow that for any reasons, because they are just a layman. They don't know the engineering principle behind those designs and drawings. So a lot we do here on site, but we always advise our member to stood their ground and stand for professionalism at all time.
Very interesting. All right, so if you were to advise the Lagos State government right now, what are the 3 actions you will prioritize, ask them to prioritize to stop building collapses in Lagos?
Now, the first
maybe something they are not doing yet, or something they should be doing and not doing too well.
Yes, I will suggest 3 things to the state government. Though they've been doing fantastically well in those aspects, but I think they can still do more in monitoring aspect of every project.
Monitoring?
Yes. Okay. They have the what they call MO at every LAPCA district. LAPCA is simply Lagos State Building Control Agency. At every district, they have MOs, a lot of MOs. They call them monitoring officers. So they need to do more and ensure that every stages of the project, they are involved without compromising any stage. Then secondly is to prosecute defaulters. When the monitoring officers experience that, or maybe they observe that the project site does not have adequate or experienced personnel, they should prosecute the owner or the financier of that project. So once they can prosecute Mr. A and B, Mr. C will switch right. Because the reason why for this is because safety matters to everyone. Because if our environment is safe, our property will be safe, then we can also save lives too. So then the third one is to always ensure that every project has a professional, let me say a licensed professional, be professional on such projects. It will be a civil engineer, an architect, a builder, but they must be professionals, not all these young graduates and the likes. Yes, young graduates can also work under the tutelage of a professional body or a professional personnel, but a young graduate should not be the main core person on the project, because experience matters a lot on every project. So they need to do more in these 3 aspects.
Sorry if I can ask this question as a lay person. What's the difference between the responsibilities of the civil engineers and the builder on a site?
Yes, like I've said, the civil engineers get involved at the conceptual stage.
Okay,
if
that's foundation stage.
When the client is trying to sell out his or her visions
about
to the
house,
professionals.
about the building.
Yes, okay. The first person, after the surveyors gets the boundaries of the land, he gives to the architect to do the architectural designs. So the architect will now pass his or her designs to the structural engineer or the civil engineers to do the structural aspect. When the civil engineers will first of all determine the soil bearing capacity. It's very, very paramount. Because before an engineer can carry out any designs, he must know the soil characteristics, soil conditions, soil behaviors of such projects before he can design. Because this will really determine the types of foundations based on the proposed height or structures that is coming up on that soil. So after getting the result of the soil, then that will now, the result, the value of the result will determine the types of foundations the engineers will use in his or her designs. So do the analysis, the designs, then the builder will also work alongside with the structural engineers to build the project, to make it a physical object. Because while the builders are building, the structural engineer will also, or the civil engineer will also be involved to also, interpret the drawing and also ensure that where it designed that we can have a column here, we can have a beam here, everything is being put in place to ensure the safety and integrity of that project.
Thank you for clarifying. All right, so what will be your one clear message to developers, homeowners at this point? Because day to day, it's not always all about government.
Yes.
It's also about the homeowners and the developers themselves. So what will be your word to them?
It's just two things. They should not cut costs. In terms of maximizing profits, they should ensure that they use the right materials for the right purpose. And second, which is very, very paramount, is to engage professionals. If they don't know any, they can easily get in touch with all these professional bodies. Nigerian Institute of Civil Engineers, Nigerian Institute of Architects, Nigerian Institute of Builders, and the likes. We have all our offices in Lagos. They must ensure that they use the right quality materials for the right purpose at the right time, and they must also ensure that they use experienced, licensed, built professionals on all their projects.
What about the homeowners themselves?
Yes, in general, I have generalized it. Developers, homeowners, they must ensure, because as an individual, you have the right to consult, build professionals, engineers, architects come and help you build your project. They must ensure those two things. They use the right materials and they use the licensed and registered build professionals, civil engineers, architects, and the likes.
Okay, so finally, do you have hope that this challenge, these issues will be significantly reduced? Do you have hope? Do you feel we are getting to the people, your words are making impact in the built environment?
Yes.
Okay.
And absolutely, I have hope, because we will never rest until when our voices are heard. So we need to, be on our toes to continue the advocacy process that we've started, to ensure that we talk and our voices are heard, both at the government agency and to each individuals in the state, that they must patronize professionals. Because if we cannot come together and ensure that all these things that we've been saying, we put them to work, then the cause or the issue of building collapse will become a thing of the past. Government need to do their own work. Professional bodies also need to do their own work. Individuals, owners, developers also need to play their own role to ensure that we never experience anything called building collapse in Lagos State. Because Lagos State is a dear state to each and every one of us.
Yes, so
and safety begins from each and every one of us.
We live in Lagos. Thank you so much. All right, bro. So I'm happy that you said you have hope that with all the advocacy, all the announcement, the discussions, issues of building collapse will be significantly reduced moving forward. Thank you so much. So we have been talking with the Lagos State Chairman of the Nigerian Institution of Civil Engineers, Engineer Shobowale Bolaji. Thank you for obliging us for this interview.
Thank you for having me.
We wish you all the best in your organization.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
You're welcome. All right, so that's the discussion this morning. Everyone is, the ball is in your court. So let's all do what's right to help the government ensure that everyone living in Lagos is safe. We'll go on to the next segment of the program where we showcase activities and programs of the Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu administration in Lagos State. So we'll leave you with that package. I'll see you again for another edition of Summit. I am Jumoke Michaels. Bye-bye. Lagos State Governor Babajide